Dear Church, let's talk sermon construction with Billy McGuiggan. Hello and welcome to the Dear Church podcast. I'm your host, Chris McCurley. Excited about this series, excited about my guest today. My good friend Billy McGuiggan joins us all the way from Virginia. Billy, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Greatly appreciate it, and especially for this opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, we so appreciate the work that you do there at Three Chopt Road, and thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us and talk about a series that we have been doing with various ministers, talking about sermon construction, and really the impetus of this series has been to kind of see how different preachers tackle sermon construction, and we wanted a variety of preachers, a variety of individuals that give different nuances to how they build a sermon through the week. And you were one that I thought of. That I thought, Billy is unique in a lot of ways. And if you've ever heard Billy speak, you know that he's got a really a neat style, and also being from Ireland, got that accent that goes along with it. So that automatically makes you perk up and listen, right? So there are a lot of reasons why I enjoy listening to you, but I want to talk about behind the scenes this episode. Before we do, though, talk a little bit about the work there at Three Chopt Road. Tell us a little bit about your family for those who don't know you very well.
Okay, I've been preaching at the Three Chopt Road Church for probably close to 10 years now. Great fellowship. They love to sing and they tolerate the preaching. They're doing the best they can do, almost the best they can do, to be light and salt in the world. Married to Melissa, Groundhog Day, so our anniversary will be coming up shortly. 3 kids, Alex, who's 18, Evelyn, 16, and Aiden is 12. And Alex has gone off to college this year, Lord willing. So that's interesting how quickly life goes. Thoroughly enjoy working at the Three Chopt Church, and got a great co-worker. His name is Craig Eckstein, and he may listen to this at some point, so I better say something nice about him. And a lady called Bernie, who's the office administrator. I'll probably mention them a little bit later on. So I'm here having a good time, and hopefully God is glorified in what I'm trying to accomplish. Yeah,
and I'm sure he is, and I appreciate all the work that you do. Talk a little bit about where you start. So you're coming in on maybe Monday. Some preachers take off Monday, so maybe it's Tuesday. But whatever day it is that you start your week, talk about how you come up with that topic, and how you land on whatever you're going to preach that Sunday. Where do you come up with topics? Where do you get ideas from?
All right. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. What I have done probably now for about 5 or 6 years, and I think I learned this from you, is around September time is to start thinking and reflecting on the next year preaching. What will I preach? Maybe even a preaching theme. This year, the preaching theme for 2024 is what is God up to today? And I'll discuss that a little bit more later on. And so from September, I kick it around this idea, and particularly with my co-worker Craig, thinking, what do our people need to hear? So that's a big help in my weekly routine, is having something nailed down by December of the year before, in a weekly, in a Word document, January 1st, whatever the dates are in January, this is what I'm going to preach on. And then that helps me with the weekly organizing. I do take Mondays off, so Tuesday is the day I really kind of start. So the weekly routine is I have to be. This is going to sound very basic, but you're going to get what you get with me. And I have to be reading the Bible for myself. That sounds, we preachers, well, of course you're going to read the Bible. What I mean is, usually my routine on my journey with God, you've heard me use that language before and preaching and whatnot, is I'm trying to be in a relationship with God. So that's where I start. as I read the scriptures, I think to myself, am I coming, before I read it, am I coming, do I want to hear a word from God? If I don't have notes, and they're off to the side there, but I want to hear from God because I want to grow in my relationship with God. And so that, I think, I got to be reading the Bible for myself. And then I think, well, I got some other people here who are also trying to grow in their relationship with God too. So I think about, I'm the kind of preacher that needs the good news as much as the people listening to me preach. So I tell people, I preach the gospel to myself and people get to hear it. And I'm genuine as it can be with that answer. So if people hear what I'm preaching on, it's saying, this is what's going on in Billy's life, or this is what Billy's dealing with, if that makes sense. And it's not always specific. So there's the daily routine of, I got to get in the Word, and it's me and God. I'm trying to grow in God. And I know when I get into that, people are going to be able to relate to it. So I'm in the scriptures. I know that much. I need quiet time when I'm reflecting and thinking. So I try to do that before, if I'm doing it at home, my kids, before they get out of bed, or on Tuesdays before my co-worker gets in, because sometimes he can come in and we catch up on ministry and whatnot. But I usually take about 2 hours where I've read something, and then I'm just going to sit. And if people could look at me in my office, I feel like I'm just sitting there. If someone look in my office, they think, well, what's he doing? I'm just like, because I'm reflecting and I'm thinking. And then I write something down on the Word document, and then I take a wee break, maybe 5 minutes, check in with someone, take a walk around the office, and then I come back and I do that several times. So it starts with me and God, and what am I doing with God? How am I growing in God? And then it ties into other people too. I do that. Then the idea of where do the sermon material or ideas come from? I think it all stems from me and God. It's sort of basic. I love God, love your neighbor. So how do I grow in me loving God? And you use the word unique. Is unique, whatever that means, and we'll discuss that offline. But whatever I deal with as a human, as a man, other people are dealing with it too. So it definitely connects to other people. So I think about love God. How do I love God? How do I love the neighbor? But it all stems from my relationship with God. And I probably rambled there and repeated myself, but so that's how the idea comes around. There was a couple of questions there. Did I answer all of them, or?
Yeah, you did. And a couple of things I'd like to talk about there for just a second. You mentioned, kind of planning around September, and that has been a huge help to me in my preaching and my preaching schedule. I think one of the scariest things for me, and it may not be for other people, one of the scariest things for me is coming up to Monday and going, okay, now what am I going to preach? And early on in my ministry, that's the way it was. I just preached a lesson on Sunday. Wow, a lot of hard work went into that. I got that one out of the way. Oh, I got to do it all again. So what am I going to do this Sunday? And when I first started preaching, I felt like after about the first month or two, well, that's all I got. I don't know where else to go now. So planning out sermons a year in advance has helped me. And it's always good to know on Monday what I'm already going to preach for that Sunday, and then I can just flesh it out. Now, that's not for everybody. We've had some really, really fine preachers on here who are very effective that say, I can't do that. I'm better if I work under pressure week to week. So we're not saying that that's the way that you have to do it. But I totally agree with you. That's made it easier on me. I take Fridays off because I feel like I'm so far behind if I wait, until Tuesday to get started. But, I know a lot of preachers that take Monday off, and that's perfectly fine. I try to take Friday if I can, because I want to get it knocked out and then have the rest of the week to kind of, go at my own pace, whatever that looks like, right? And so, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So this year's preaching theme, as already mentioned, is what is God up to today? And what I'm doing, I kicked this idea around with my friend Jordy, and I'm looking at the all the books of the Old Testament. So it's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, whatever comes after that.
Right.
So this week I happened to be in Leviticus. So I know where I'm going. It's not as if, well, what am I going to preach now? And that's what's helpful with series or coming up with the themes. And I think I did learn that from you years ago, that it's, okay, I've got some structure where I know where I'm going. Every now and again, though, there's in our preaching calendar, there are special Sundays, like Senior Sundays or Mother's Day or Father's Day, and they're kind of put into it. But for the most part, I know where I'm going. For example, this week I'm in Leviticus. It's already done, and I'm working on Numbers and Deuteronomy now. So those are helpful.
Yeah, you do have to, and you do have to be able to pivot, like you said. You've got those special Sundays, and you also have certain things that come up in the life of a congregation that you say, okay, I probably need to pause whatever I'm doing and maybe approach this particular topic because of current events or whatever's going on. But no, I really like that. I believe that it's when it comes to ministry, not just preaching, the week can be hard enough with a funeral or a couple of funerals or other unexpected things that pop up in ministry. I've always felt like people are more important than sermons. And so you've got to be there for people, right? And then also just, family life. I mean, you want to balance your time and be there for your family. And so how can I make this easier on a week-to-week basis? And I think that, in my mind, this is one of the ways to do it. Plan ahead, have what you're going to preach on for Sunday already in the hopper, ready to be fleshed out. So once you have that idea, talk about your next step. Are you putting stuff down on paper? What's your next step after you've got the idea?
Good. So what I said just before there was I sit and think, I get some scripture, but here's what I don't do, and I think that, and I don't know the correct wording on this, how to do it. I don't say, okay, I've got this idea, I'm going to preach on faithfulness, and then I'm going to look at every single Bible verse on faithfulness to grab 2 or 3 of those, proof texting. I don't know how helpful that is. I think what I try to do, though I'm using the scriptures and I'm going to the word for what I'm going to use, I want to try and find the heart of God, because this goes back to my relationship with God. Do I want to hear from God? This is me thinking of my own journey with God, but then it's going to affect the people I'm preaching to.
Yeah.
What am I learning about God that helps me, that will definitely help them? So I want to try and find the heart of God. It's not just digging for a couple of little Bible verses. What's God's heart on the matter, though I'm using that? For example, because I'm in Leviticus this week and I'll use that, I need to read the book of Leviticus if I'm going to talk about the... Now that sounds, well, of course you're going to use the book of Leviticus and you're going to read it. Well, yes, I know that, but I want to be very clear in my communication. So then I need to read Leviticus. I need to find, because I'm only doing an overview of Leviticus, one book a week, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, whatever's next after that and whatnot. That what's its purpose? Why is it written? What's some of the big themes of it? What's the heart of it? What am I supposed to grasp out of Leviticus? For example, a big theme, as we know, if we've read Leviticus before, is God is holy, right? Mm-hmm. The holiness of God. And the nation of Israel aren't. But God's making a way for them to be holy. You got the sacrificial system, you got the ritual cleansing, the clean and unclean, you got the priest role. So I think, okay, that's what I need to communicate. What are the themes? But I also use in this preparation and writing things down, I don't know what the system's called. I'll communicate it to you. You're very familiar with it. And I know Wes, our friend Wes, uses it because him and I have spoken about it before. It's the me, we, God, you, we. This is sort of the structure of it. And so the main part of it is the God part, which is the Bible part. And so from Leviticus, I'm trying to figure out, okay, God is holy. I've got that. But for me, which I'll bring at the beginning of the sermon, is the me part. I'm going to be telling people I'm not holy. I'm sinful. To build tension or create tension in a way. Now, this is all before I deliver it, but it's okay, I've got the God part. I'm not God. I'm not like God, though I'm trying to be. And then it's the me. And then I go to the we and say, aren't we all the same, so we can all relate to it? Then God is the solution. And then after the God part, it's the you. What are you going to do? This is all preparation, of course, before I deliver it. What are you going to do, listener, in response to God being holy? And then it goes to the we part. It says, what if we tried to be holy? What if we tried not to sin? What would that look like? Would that make us more like God? Or, and then even add in, well, what if we didn't try to be holy? What would that look like? And then, of course, you want the people to be holy. So that's sort of what I do in getting the ideas and putting some things on the paper. And all of that has got to do with, I'm writing it down, I'm structuring it, I'm putting it together. I don't know if that answers the question or not. Jump back.
No, it does. I mean, talk a little bit more in detail, like what it looks like through the week. So, I know some sermons flow better than others. I was listening to the Billy Joel channel on XM radio. I like Billy Joel, and he's got a channel right now on XM radio. And he was talking about when he wrote New York State of Mind, he had a tune in his head and some lyrics, and he was looking for a piano frantically. I need a piano. And he sat down and he said, some of these songs are just like a gift from God, and they fall down and they write themselves. And he said that whole song, the whole process of writing that song was very short. Some sermons are like that, right? They just kind of write themselves. It's easy. And then some you labor with them and you sit with them all week and they just don't seem to flow. And if you're like me, sometimes you get midweek and say, I can't preach this. I got to start over. But talk about your process. Once you have the thought, the idea, once you have some things down, do you, start on Tuesday and try to have it done by Friday at noon? I mean, what is your timeline so that you can get it all down and ready to preach?
Well, I think it's not a one size fits all, as you just said there. Sometimes sermons can come out very quickly with not a lot of study, because maybe you're familiar with the text, or maybe you preached on it before, or you heard someone else preach on it, and it can come quickly. But not to the whole idea of timeline without sounding clever or smart, and this is going to come across in a way, I'm saying it anyway, that it's taken me 20 years. I think this is right. It's taken me about 20 years of full-time ministry and 51 years of living life to write the sermon I wrote on Leviticus. Now that sort of, what are you talking about? I've been shaped. It's life experience, it's ministry, it's, and I sometimes, as you say, sermons can come out really quickly. That doesn't mean it took me 2 hours to write the sermon. There's a lot of background. There's a lot of history. There's a lot. I've read that text before. I've worked with it before. That all plays into it. I do try to get a good chunk of it done on Tuesday, because it's the first day, and with the series, I know where I'm going with it. But sometimes the coworker comes in. Sometimes one of the members wants to stop by and have a chat. And as you say, people are more important than sermons. So, but there's times where I say, look, don't disturb me right now. I'm in the middle of it. Coworker, office administrator, don't just leave me be. I gotta, focus because it's flowing. But I try to get the bulk of it done, if not all of it done, by Thursday. Then half of Friday, and I let it simmer then. And so when I come to it on Friday, I'm reading over it, I'm looking over it again. But I also do that on Saturday evening. And I also do that on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
I'm reading it over and over and over and over again, and then some of it will be cut out, and it's on the cutting room floor. Yeah, I'm repeating myself there. And I'm not a wordsmith, but, keep it simple or communicate as clearly as possible. And we preachers can make simple things very complex and difficult. So I try to get it all done by Thursday at the latest. But again, I'm probably working on the last half of Numbers or some into Deuteronomy this week. Because Leviticus, so it's not always, you know what I'm saying? It's not always.
No, I do. I totally get it. And are you a manuscript guy? Do you write everything down?
Yeah, it is manuscript. It's there, and it's more of a safety net. I know,
me too.
Because I've read it so much. I can't preach without notes. I'm jealous of those who can do it, and Kerry Newhoff and a couple of the other people are teaching, hey, try to preach without notes. But no, I'm all manuscript. It's there because I want to speak from my heart, because my heart's involved in my communication. Again, it goes back to my relationship with God, my heart with God as I communicate. But I also want to, which can be difficult to look at every single person, eye contact with every single person in the audience, but to speak to them and say, you and I, and every now and again, even when I'm preaching, I'll say, isn't that right, John? Because John's looking at me, and I want to communicate and talk to people. And then, because we preachers and teachers, we need to preach, we need to teach, not read notes. I could stand up and do that. And maybe sometimes I do have to read a particular thing, that maybe a quote or a passage that I don't memorize it or haven't got it memorized, and I have to read it, so I'll look down. But for the most part, I want eye contact with people.
Yeah, I think the most genuine guys that I listen to, that I really enjoy, are just that, right? They come across as genuine, authentic, and they're not looking down and reading their entire sermon. Yep. They are, like you said, making eye contact. I feel like they are feeling the sermon and what they're saying, and they're looking at me or looking around when they do it to make sure that they're pulling the audience in. I will say this is my opinion, so take it for what it is. I don't agree with the idea that notes are all bad, and I think sometimes that impression is given as you don't need to use notes. Notes are bad. Notes are, the devil. I think for me, I'm manuscript because it helps me to remember it when I write it down. But also when I go back and preach it later, I don't have to wonder what I thought. And then also in Abilene, we had a TV program. And so you'd load the script and I would read the script on the teleprompter as I was going along. And it helped me there too. So that's just me. But I do think that there are certain points in the sermon where I really want to make a plea, or I want people to feel what I'm saying always, but especially there's certain illustrations or things like that. I don't want to be reading that, right? But I mean, you used a good term there. I've used it too, safety net. That's really what notes are. They shouldn't be your main piece of delivery, but at the same time, they're there in case you need them.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The Holy Spirit works in this too, of course, but I can't just get up and say, well, I read that scripture and the Holy Spirit's going to give me something to say. I got to put the work in. I got to dig.
No doubt.
Because our people are expecting a good sermon, not a mediocre one. That's, for some of us, for some of them, that's the main thing I do. I got to try and knock it out every week. So there's got to be preparation. And I got to do it well, and I got to develop the craft too, which is one of the reasons why I listen to other speakers and how they do it. And, that's helpful. I'm going to kind of steal that. So,
well, you've already kind of answered this question when you said that you look over your lesson, several times, you read over it. What other things do you do once you've got the thought on paper and you're taking the sermon and going to deliver it on Sunday? What do you do in preparation for delivery?
That's a great question. I call it polishing, the reading over it, taking things out, maybe even wording it a different way. I'm not a wordsmith, but it's done on the Thursday into the Friday. It's usually Friday afternoon or the Friday morning, depending what my schedule's like. Saturday night, Saturday evening, and into Sunday morning. I'm reading it, wording it, but a part of this too is in my preparation before I deliver it. And I think this is very important. And hopefully other people connect with it. My heart needs to be right before I preach. I take preaching seriously. And it's all connected to my journey and walk with God. How's me and God? What am I learning about God? So as I reflect, especially on Saturday evening, and as I read it, and Sunday morning, preparation, is my heart right with God? Because I'm going to be using my heart. And I'm not trying to be too emotional about this, but there's a part of it too. Is my heart right with God before I use it to speak in His behalf? So that's a part of it. And what I've done probably for about a year now is I've recorded the sermon, usually Friday afternoon. I just use my phone, whatever app is on my phone, and I'm reading it, but I'm reading it as I'm preaching it. So inflections there, I get loud, and as I feel like I'm going to say it, and then I'll listen to it. I listen to it a couple of times, but on whatever app it is on the phone, I can speed it up, and so I can hear my tone, or if I get loud, or like, and then I'm like, what did I just say there? Because with my accent, I can come across too strong sometimes, and I really work with this, but sometimes we need to come across strong in a particular area, depending what it is, but not all the time, like hellfire and brimstone. I'm not keen on that. Anyway, so I listen to my tone. That's a part of my preparation too. But my heart is very important. But then, I have to send slides. I didn't always use a PowerPoint, so that has to be done too. And then I send them to my coworker who makes a wee sheet for our kids, some of the younger kids, and it's sort of a fill out the blank thing. And they, when they give me 10 of those sheets, they get a $10 Chick-fil-A gift card. I like that. Helps them. Craig, the coworker, came up with that idea. Helps them and helps their parents to also listen. While the kids are listening, they're not bothering their parents. So, reading over and over again, but my heart, Chris, because, maybe me and Melissa are having, or we're doing something with the kids and the kids are giving us trouble, or I've got something on my mind. For example, like my father-in-law's in surgery right now, heart deals in for 8 hours. That's in the back of my mind. And so whatever I'm dealing with personally, whatever's going on within my family, a member died or this, that, and the other, all that comes into play. And even, and you preachers that are listening to this will know, some member comes up and chews me out for something, and I'm getting up to preach. That affects me too. Chew me out after I do the sermon, knock yourself out. But you know what I'm saying? So the heart, I guess I kind of protect my heart or make sure my heart's okay. And I'm repeating myself, so I'll quit. But there's a heart delivery preparation that I do as well before I preach.
I love that. And I think that's so important to key on, because we've talked about it in this series already that, sometimes, a preacher can kind of get in character before they go up to preach.
Yes.
It's more of a showcase or a performance or things like that. I don't think that's many preachers, but sometimes that happens. And, I like how you put, the heart factor into that, because that's really what it boils down to, because you're not giving a book report every week. Yep. You're not standing up saying, this is my research paper, let me deliver it to you. Yeah. It's not a TED Talk. This is real life stuff. And I always say I preach to myself first. And I love how you say it. I'm preaching to myself, and then everybody gets to listen in.
Yes.
But, I think that is such a key in all of this, because if the heart's not involved, then really what is all this for, right?
Yeah.
I never want to be the guy that stands up there and just says, hey, this is what I've learned. Let me impart this knowledge to you because you need to hear it. No, I want to leave people with hope, and I want to help people to grow in their relationship with God, right? And so I think the best way to do that is to be genuine and honest and connect with people. But you know this to be true because you do this well. But I think a preacher is only worth his salt, and he is only going to have credibility in the pulpit if he has a great relationship with people outside the pulpit,
Yeah.
And so I think that's where it starts.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what size of group you're preaching to. I'm preaching to maybe 220, 230. It's very difficult as a preacher. And sometimes our churches, and I don't want to get on a rant here, sometimes our elders or churches expect that the preacher meet with every single member of the church and connect with it. That's not possible. Now, we can give wee touches here and there. Good to see you this morning and whatnot. Yeah. But we do need to be around our people. But we also have to remember, and I hope this doesn't sound like a rant, we're not the CEO of the church. We're not shepherds or elders or deacons. Our main job is to preach. But people have to be included in that. We're not paid to be a Christian. I'm a Christian. I get to preach. I happen to be paid to do it. But the church don't pay me to do Christianity for them. So I'm living my life as openly as I can in front of them. I have a lunch every now and again, try to do lunch or at least a phone call or something with a member a week, if not more. Some stop at the office, some don't. Some don't want you to stop at their house, but to connect and engage, because on Sunday and Wednesdays, and maybe sometimes even on a Tuesday, if there's a wee class going on, I'm going to come over and say hello. But I can't do that with everybody. But I connect as best that I'm able, and you can't connect with every single person. So people are important, of course, but our main job is to preach. And some churches want the preacher to do absolutely everything, and it's silly to ask the preacher to do that. And I'm sorry if I'm on a rant. I don't mean to be. It's true. Our main job is to preach. And that's what they expect. And we need to make sure we protect our time, not hide in the office, because we can do that. I got to study. I can't meet with anybody. No, that's not. We get sermon ideas from conversations. And I know Johnny or Sally's going through this, and somehow that can be put in the sermon. Anyway.
Yeah. No, very good point. I don't think you're ranting at all. I think there's a place for that to be said, because I look at some of the sometimes job descriptions that are posted on, websites, and, they're almost 2 pages long, and you read them and you go, I wonder what the rest of the congregation's doing. I wonder what the elders do at this congregation. I mean, you've got the preacher doing every single thing. What are y'all doing? Right. And, like you said, there are other things that go along with the job, some that fall under that category of other duties as assigned.
Yes.
But the main primary responsibility is to be an evangelist, a preacher of God's word.
Yes.
And I like how you put that. So let's tie this up with me asking you this. If there's just one piece of advice that you can give to preachers out there, what would it be?
The blessing that I have, and some preachers may not like me for saying this, one blessing I have is I preach once a week, and I teach 1 quarter a year. Though I fill in for a teacher. Some of our preachers are being asked to put together 4 sermons a week, or 3 sermons in a Bible class. And that's extremely hard to do if you want quality. You can knock out some things, but so for those of you who have to put 4 lessons together, don't be expecting, top class sermons if you're knocking out 3 or 4 a week. That's hard. So I would say be kind to yourself. Give yourself a break. And also, I think you touched on it as well. We preach. We're also married. Most of us are married, and most of us have kids. And there has to be a balance there too. Your wife, your family, is your number one ministry. And then you got to take care of yourself too. And then I said this when I came to Three Chopt. I said, I'm going to drop ministry at times to spend some time with my wife and kids. I'm not going to be at absolutely every church function, but there's an expectation. Don't allow that. You have to guard yourself in some way. Don't abuse it though and say, hey, I'm going to just stay in my office all the time. But don't be too hard on yourself, and don't tell everybody, don't tell everything every time you get up to preach. Just pour it in. You're on a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? Would you agree with that, wouldn't you?
I would.
Let me ask you the same question to you. What advice would you give to some preachers?
Learn to say no. So very much in the same vein as what you're saying. No may be the biggest word in your vocabulary. Now, again, you can't develop a culture of no. You can't say no all the time, but be willing to put best things before good things. And if you don't get your family on the boat like Noah did, what's this all for, right? So make sure that you get your family on the boat, and make sure that you draw some boundaries, because in my entire ministry, I have made sure that Saturday was kind of off limits. Now there's things that happen, right? You have a wedding or a funeral or something like that. But for the most part, Saturdays have been my day where the ministry kind of takes a back seat, if it's even in the car at all. And my family and we're together, and that is not the only day I give to them, but that is the one day that I try week in, week out to say, this is all about us today and nothing church related necessarily. And so I think that has been a key for me, and that's why I try to express to young ministers especially. Yeah.
I just think the idea of our preaching and being in ministry full time is difficult. It really is.
Yeah.
I would also encourage preachers to find other preachers and become friends with other preachers. For when it's difficult, I need to download on someone who can relate and know exactly what I'm talking about. Don't do this on your own. Find preachers around your age or people that have been preaching longer than you, and say, hey, you okay with me connecting with you every now and again when I've got difficulty, and learn from them and get wisdom from them. Don't think you're doing this on your own.
Yeah, I love that.
That's some advice I'd give.
Yeah. Billy, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. And I want to let our listeners and viewers know that if you have a question about today's episode, you can email me at chris.mccurley@rippleoflight.com. And if you have a question specifically for Billy, make sure that you email us and we'll forward it to him. And I'm sure he'd be willing to respond to any question or comment that you might have. Billy, thanks again, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. Love you dearly. God bless you. Okay. Thank you for doing what you do in the kingdom. It's very helpful.
Yeah. Thank you, Billy. Love you too. And I love all of our listeners and viewers. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. Sincerely, Chris.